Hey everybody, it's Davison, and in this video I wanted to talk about a concept that I've been thinking a lot about lately, which is the idea of creating momentum in your life as you're working towards your goals. And I think one of the problems for a lot of musicians, I think one of the challenges we face as musicians is that oftentimes we have these sort of vague, really big ideas of what success means to us. So for some of us, maybe it means eventually becoming famous or becoming a quote unquote rock star or quote unquote making it in the music business, whatever we feel like that means. And I think for a lot of musicians, it equates to selling lots of CDs or downloads, or somehow making a lot of money doing what we love, which I think is fine. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with having goals like that. But I think the problem is that for many of us, our goals are so big and so lofty that we sort of get lost along the way because we're not really focusing on creating momentum on more of a micro scale as we work towards our goals. So I'll give you an example of what I mean. I've found in my own personal life, in business, in music, in relationships, in whatever I'm doing, when I have a sense of momentum, when I have a sense that things are working and that I'm progressing, I tend to progress much more. There's the expression that I think sums it up really well is success begets success. So the idea is if you have goals that are more manageable, that you can actually attain and work towards those, you can create this sort of sense of forward momentum that will keep you going. So whether it's licensing or performing, whatever it is, I think it's a really good idea to sort of break down your goals into a more micro sort of manageable scale. So I'll give you an example of how this could play out. Let's take licensing, for example. Let's say that you've never licensed any music and you want to have some success in licensing. I think it's a really good idea to sort of break down the steps involved in licensing your music. So maybe the first thing you need to do is like really focus on songwriting, get your songs up to speed. Maybe you have 10 or 12 songs, just for example, just hypothetically, but maybe only half of them are really finished. So obviously the first thing you would need to do is finish those songs and get the songs to a level that you feel really good about. So that's the first step. And then you would need to start reaching out to people in the industry, reaching out to publishers and supervisors. And so maybe the second or third month you start focusing on that. And then maybe you sign with a publisher or a supervisor picks up one of your songs. And as you start getting these little small successes, you'll build this momentum that will keep you going and help you eventually get closer and closer to whatever your long-term goals are. So I think it's really important that you think of things this way and not get discouraged if you're not exactly where you want to be in life. I did a blog post a few days ago about how success doesn't necessarily create happiness, and there's been a lot of studies about this. And the sort of interesting finding that a lot of psychologists have arrived at is that it's actually the opposite is that happy people tend to become more successful just because they're happy and they're more motivated and more focused, and they tend to be more effective. So I think the mistake a lot of us make, and I know I've definitely been guilty of this in the past, is thinking that when I achieve my goals, having this sort of goal way off in the future and imagining that one day if I arrive at this place where all my goals are realized, that then I'll be happy. And I think that's sort of backwards thinking. I think you have to create smaller, more manageable goals and focus on being happy now as you're enjoying the journey. So I hope this video and concept makes sense to you. Again, you can apply this to anything, whether it's licensing. I tend to focus on licensing, but you could do the same thing with performing. Instead of focusing on playing arenas, focus on just playing to more people in your local market, and then from there focus on expanding regionally. So I think if you're always just focused on what the next step is, you'll find it's much more easy to actually achieve your goals if you kind of break things down to smaller steps. So focus on building momentum. The last thing you want to do is find yourself in a place where you're just not making any progress at all and start backsliding. And I think this is what tends to happen to a lot of musicians as we reach these sort of, we feel like we're stuck sometimes and we're not quite sure how to move forward, when in reality there's always something you can do on a day-to-day basis to move even just a little bit forward. So focus on momentum. Don't worry too much about your really, really long-term goals, and focus on moving forward a little bit each day. And that's all for now. Have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.